Good morning, my friends. We're continuing with our conversation about money magnetism. So let's go. Let's pray together. Heavenly Father, Divine Mother, friend, beloved God, Jesus Christ, Babaji Krishna, Lahiri Mahashaya, Swami Sri Yukteswar, beloved Master Paramhansa Yogananda, saints of all religions, dearest divine friend Swami Kriyananda, humbly we bow to all. Help us to open ourselves to your guiding inspiration in this all-important subject of prosperity and attracting money and living rightly in this world. Help us to rise above the limiting karmas that we've built up over many incarnations that block the free flow of energy. We wish to be your channels in this world, to move freely and powerfully, filled with light. Open the doors within us that this flow of energy may come, and that we may act with nobility and generosity and spiritual greatness in all that we do. Om, peace. Amen. Om, om, om. Just give me a moment here. I wanted to just look at something in this book. This chapter is called The Value of Tithing. Okay. Okay, exactly. Tithing is a subject that I've always particularly loved. It just seems to me, because my relationship to money, as I've expressed to you many times, has been more from the level of flow than of the details. Tithing just always, it really worked for me. And I've followed it very faithfully through all these years. I just realized that I haven't actually built it yet into the Patreon support system that I've been working with all this time. So I have to do that. So I just gave a lie to my own statements, but I'm going to go back and fix it. Okay, here's what the concept of tithing is, and here's why it's so important. And I hope when I'm finished, you'll understand why it's such a good idea. Tithing is, the word tithe means a tenth, but the concept is a percentage, but the ancient tradition is 1/10. So a tithe, that's what the word means. The practice of tithing was a Jewish practice at the time that Jesus lived, and the fact that it went on to become a central Christian practice was because it was already a Jewish practice. It was actually, it's in the Old Testament. It's among the laws of Moses, and it was practical in the sense of it was a way to sustain the temple and the priests, which were a necessary part of life for the religious people. And it also has a much more subtle level because it connects us to a level of faith and a level of giving that activates the laws of magnetism that we're talking about. In the Old Testament, it's actually described like this, that I'm not sure exactly who, but maybe it's a priest of the temple, shall hold up his staff, and the farmer shall drive his flocks, under that staff, in single file, and every 10th sheep or pig or cow or whatever it is, I guess there would be no pigs if it was Judaism, but every 10th animal will be pulled out and put over here, and this herd belongs to the priest. This herd belongs to the temple, is what it is. So, and then with the sheaves of wheat, the the jugs of wine, everything that they make, every 10th one goes to the temple. And in that way, everybody contributes what is really considered to be an equal share. because if a man has 1,000 sheep, then he's going to give 100 to the temple. If a man has 10, he's going to give 1. It's going to be the same percentage. He'll be reduced by that percentage. Of course, a rich man, 1,000 sheep and having only 900 might not be even felt by the king, by the rich man. Excuse me. Whereas 10 sheep being reduced to 9 could be more of a hardship for the family. But it was considered to be Mosaic law, which is to say it came down from heaven as the way they were to behave. And it was, I'm sorry, I haven't had this problem in many days, but let me just catch my throat clear here. But it would be considered then that everybody who relies on the priesthood and on the temple for their spiritual inspiration, now everybody is contributing to be able to sustain the priest and the temple because it's essential to their spiritual life. How that translates now, because we don't have the priest in the temple holding the staff and we don't have sheep and so on like that, the idea is the sustaining spiritual force in your life. We give back to the source of our inspiration in order so that that source can continue to thrive. It's self-interest, because if that source thrives, then I am the recipient of that inspiring energy, and therefore then I am energized in everything that I do. I am guided. I am kept on purpose, on to my purpose, and also I am demonstrating in a very concrete, irrefutable way what's important to me. And if my spiritual sustenance is important to me, money is one of the ways that we indicate that something has importance to us, because it takes our time, it takes our energy. In some cases, it may deprive us of benefit that we would keep in a more selfish way, that we open ourselves to give it in a way that is beneficial not only to me, but beneficial to the whole. The whole society is sustained because these noble, spiritually inspired institutions and entities and individuals continue to thrive. They're able to do the work that they do because it's important to others and they sustain them to do it. Nowadays, where many people are not so institutionally inclined, when Swami Kriyananda was alive, many people tithed personally and directly to him. It wasn't even Ananda per se that they felt inspired by. It was Swami Kriyananda himself who was the source of their inspiration. So they gave 10% of their income to Swamiji. And at a certain point in his life, in 1998, at the end of some very vicious litigation in which Kriyananda was accused of taking advantage of everyone financially, he just made a decision that he cut himself off from all stipends, all salaries, all regular payment of any of his expenses, and just put himself in Divine Mother's hands. And Divine Mother supported him, and he was always able to do everything he wanted to do because he was in the flow, and he had the money magnetism. Whatever was required, he was able to do within reason. We never had um, an open checkbook from any patron. We've never had a patron. Ananda's never had a patron on that scale. We've had many generous people and many generous people of means who have made a great deal possible. But it was always every adventure, every expansive adventure always required great magnetic force in order to bring it about. Some people who don't particularly belong to any spiritual group, like I know some friends who asked me if it was okay to tithe to the Sierra Club. In the USA, the Sierra Club is a very active group to preserve natural places. And so they felt that nature was the source of their spiritual inspiration, and therefore the Sierra Club was the proper recipient of their tithe. I thought that was rather creative, and I thought that was a good idea. So I thought, if that's sincerely how you feel, because the difficulty is you can't give money to God directly. God has no use for money. God is the money, he already owns it. That's not really, it can't really be done like that. So that's why we say the source of your inspiration. Let me think about it just for a second. Just on a practical level, well, I'll come back to there in a moment. Now, on one level, it's just like, oh, well, this is a nice, convenient, socially acceptable. And you think, well, who created this up? Gosh, it came out of the churches or the religious groups. And what do you know? It's to the perfect benefit of the churches and the religious groups. So we have to move it outside of that. And that's why I was very interested that it was part of the inspiration that Moses received. I don't know whether he got it from the same burning bush in the same download or not, but there was a cartoon I saw that I loved, and you see what is clearly a picture of Moses, and Moses is standing holding the stone tablets on which he engraved the Ten Commandments. According to the Cecil B. DeMille movie version of it, he's standing on a mountain holding these stone tablets, and there's lightning and thunder and clouds above him. And it says Moses was the first person to download from to use a tablet to download from the cloud. That's what it said. So anyway, going on. But the point of it is this. It's very difficult for us to create for ourselves in a human way actual tests of faith. Now, Divine Mother imposes them on us. She takes away things we're attached to. She sometimes brings seeming tragedy into our lives. She breaks our attachments. All these sorts of things happen to us. And God knows we don't want to be going out begging for this sort of stuff. It comes to us. Sufficient unto the day is the trouble thereof. We don't have to go looking for things. But this whole question of money and our faith in God and what really sustains us and where does prosperity come from, it's a bit amorphous and hard to get your hands on. And we can say anything you want, Lord, I trust you. It is very, very interesting to me. I don't have any issues about money. And this has actually gotten me in trouble because sometimes I've just gone to people to talk about money or their money, just thinking this is an impersonal conversation we can have. And I've discovered that that's not how people feel. People can be very open about a lot, but when it comes to their money, they start closing it up. And Swami himself, interestingly, when he was talking about transparency, he says, not everyone can comprehend the flow of money. And you can't really make it democratic for people who don't completely understand it. He said, in the same way you can't have people who are tone deaf sing in the choir. He said, understanding money is a talent like any other. And some people will see very large sums of money in a bank account for an organization, for example, and not understand how that relates proportionally to the whole flow and so on. But people can be very protective about their money and very worried about it. So it's a hard subject to really get your hands on. So this principle of tithing, which was an ancient teaching presented to the Jews by Moses at the very beginning and then maintained all through Christianity, is an actual way that we can, on a regular basis, we can test our faith. Is my prosperity the result of my effort? Or is my prosperity the result of God's grace, giving me opportunity, giving me talent, Divine Mother expressing her love for me by enabling me by honest and industrious means to earn what I need to earn? The principle of tithing, as I understand it, now this is also very important, tithing is not the same as donating. When you donate money, you have looked at your total income and you have decided, I have extra that I can donate. This is my money, I'm going to donate extra. Tithing is that 10% of what I have doesn't even belong to me. I think of it as the commission. It's the commission I pay to God for the fact that I'm alive and I was able to generate income at all. And so it just is a commission. It's not my salary. It doesn't belong to me. And I, in my simple-minded way, especially when I would travel and somehow money would come through, book sales, income from classes, donations from people. I literally would keep 2 envelopes. And whatever came into me, as I would always find a way to take 10% off of it and put it into God's envelope, put 90% of it into my envelope. So it was never even like, it never went into my wallet and out of my wallet. It was God's from the very start, and it was important that I keep it that way, that I never look at it. And then I could look how fat God's envelope was getting, and that would please me a great deal. I tended to tithe to, I've tithed to Ananda Palo Alto, I've tithed to Swamiji directly, and I've tithed also to Ananda Village. The other thing about tithing versus donation, which is also very important, is because it's not our money, we do not have control over it. You don't say, oh, I'm going to give there because they're going to build a garden. I'm going to tithe to the garden that the church wants to build. You don't do that, because then you're controlling the money. You're acting like it's yours. You tithe it to your source of inspiration, and they decide how they're going to use it. It, they, he, she, whatever, whoever is getting it, you're returning it to them. You're not donating it to them, you're returning it to them. Then you have 90% of whatever is, and donation for specified causes is up to you. If with your actual money, which may be 90% of what you've generated, then if you decide that you want to support this project or that project, it's perfectly reasonable, but that's not a tithe. A tithe is absolutely no strings attached. This is not mine. And so you want to give it where you have a lot of trust. That's also an important part of it. You have to fully trust that this is going to be used for an inspirational purpose, because that's what also gives it the power. This is my source of inspiration. I support it not only for my own benefit, but also for other people's benefit. People have questions. Do you tithe on the gross or the net income that you have, before or after taxes, before or after your essential bills are paid? I think when you were just putting 10 sheep under the staff of the priest, it was really easy. You just took out the 10th sheep. Now with all this, you have to make up your own mind. I tend to try to just do it in the simplest possible way. If this is the money that I have, then 10% of it. This is the phrase again, it's not mine. So it's not even like I feel like I'm sacrificing or giving away. If I had something, somebody accidentally gave me something that didn't belong to me, I wouldn't think, well, it's in my hands, I get to keep it. I would think, this doesn't belong to me, I have to give it back. And that's the feeling you have to give. And knowing that because I'm deeply devoted to supporting this divine cause, then Divine Mother will also care about me. Now, there's a tithing, a prosperity mentor that we met who had a very simple principle. He said, if tithing doesn't make you a little bit nervous, you should tithe a little more. His belief was, you need to always be pushing the limits of your faith. Now, I'm not necessarily going to say it because I think it's an individual issue. You can't be presumptuous about your own level of faith. You have to act honestly within what is true for you. And if you push yourself too far and it becomes a nervous habit, that's not what you want. You want to find great joy. Every time you tithe, you want to find great joy in tithing. And the marvelous thing about a percentage is that it just is. It's always a percentage. Friends of ours who became very successful in business started tithing, and the first tithing check they wrote was $50, and they eventually wrote $1 million check, literally. But all the way through, it was just always the same. It was always just 10% of what they considered to be their income. 10% went back to the source of their inspiration. And the fact that it went from $50 to $1 million, I mean, this is partly the way I would think about these things. It's like, wow, it's gone from $50 to $1 million. I better keep tithing. And all I can say is there is a feeling that you get inside yourself where you really just know that whatever security you have in this world is really because we are behaving appropriately in the context of the flow. Like, where does opportunity come from? Where does inspiration come from? How did I find myself with these talents or with these opportunities? Am I really the one? Now, see, this goes back to what we've been talking about for the last several days. We are part of a greater reality. We are part of a greater reality that has our best interest at heart and is loving us, is watching over us. Is that true? And then if so, how do I express my gratitude to that? Expressing our gratitude to the divine is not easy because the divine is everything. Divine Mother is everything. So how do we actually show our gratitude? When I was early on with Ananda and I was in the community living there, and I was working hard because it was my nature to do so, because I love to work. I love to be active and do things. But I was really indifferent to the community. I had a very narrow concept of what was spiritual, and I was there to learn from Swamiji, and the community was happening, and I was having fun being part of it, but I prided myself on not thinking it was important. And then I noticed that Swami Kriyananda was exhausting himself, pouring out his life's blood, would almost literally be true, to make this community a success. And it occurred to me that he was my guide in all things spiritual. And if this is how he valued the community, then I thought there was something wrong with my thinking, because it was his commission from Master. It was something Master wanted to have in this world. And how could he show his gratitude to Master for all the spiritual guidance and help that Master was giving him by putting his energy behind the things that were important to Master? So at that point, I was already serving Swami personally. I was his secretary. I often cooked for him. I was sort of a personal assistant. I think I was even sewing some of his clothes at that time. I was very engaged with helping taking care of his life. But I had to think for a minute. It was helpful that I was doing that. He was grateful. It freed him up for more important work, and it helped make his life flow. I happened to be good at that, and I was able to do it. But compared to building this community as a commission from Master, I mean, he didn't care what clothes he was wearing. He didn't care what food he was eating. The community was his real, at that point, serving Master. And if I wanted to really be his friend as he was being a friend to me, I needed to actually commit my energy to what he had committed his to. In that case, I was on the spot and I was able to put my energy behind it. But here we are, our lives are so dispersed. And we want to serve whatever the source of our inspiration is, our teacher, our guru's work, the idea of spiritual energy being delivered to the world at large. There's this group. I receive their newsletters. I don't tithe to them because they're not my source of inspiration, but they carry Bibles into the parts of the world where the Bible is a forbidden book. And they just tell these wonderful stories of extraordinary courage in people smuggling Bibles into atheistic countries where it's a it's a terrible criminal act to have a Bible. And this is apparently going on even nowadays, and it's been going on for decades like this. And I think for someone who felt that the Word of God through the Bible was the most important thing, I mean, I would be so inspired to want to help those people. And then that would be the source of my inspiration when I read the Bible every day, to think that somewhere someone else is also able to read the Bible because of what I'm doing. You see, there's all kinds of things going on in the world. And if I sit there and I think, well, I can't afford it. I can't afford it. I mean, think about, I'm using the case of the Bible. Think about what that means to those people, what those people would give up to get that Bible. And I'm not willing to skip my Starbucks coffee for a week or 2 weeks. I mean, like, really, what are we doing? Can I live on 10% less? And if I think about what it has meant to me to be able to study Master's teachings and have access to all this material of Swamiji that has just been the guiding force in my life, do I want other people to have that? How important is that to me? So then we get, this is, tithing is a very real question. I say that this is so important to me. I say that these are my values, but I, quote, can't afford to tithe. My point of view is, how can we afford not to? How can we stand and say, this is what my life is, this is who I am, but I'm just going to keep it for myself because I can't afford to? This is the widow's mite, even in the New Testament, where the rich man lays a vast sum of money into the offering bowl, but it has no impact on his life. And the widow gives a tiny coin, but it's such a high percentage of her life that's where the power is. There's another story of a famous tither whose name I can't remember. He was in a, a fundamentalist Christian context. He started tithing 10%. His his business became so powerful and so successful that he actually tithed 90% and kept 10%. And he was believed in missionary work and so on, and he just funded missionaries all over the world. And he just, as his income began to just swell and swell, he thought, this is not being given to me for myself. This is being given to me for God's work, and 10% of what I earn is more than enough for what I need to sustain myself in quite a comfortable way with my family. I mean, that's quite a remarkable story. And I know there's another one that's really lovely. I don't think it's probably apocryphal, but I don't know. A man who had written a large tithing check to church people, and then he delivered it to them. He was very happy about it. And then the next day, his business crashed, and he lost a huge amount of money. And he called the church and said, about that tithing check I sent yesterday. And the person who received the call said, well, I'm naturally, given what's happened, we can tear it up immediately. He said, no, he said, I want to double it. Because where does fortune, good fortune, and bad fortune come from? You see, this is what we have to meditate on. And I can't quantify these things. You can't really do it. But I definitely feel deeply in my soul that the consistent understanding of the principle of tithing and consistently acting on it has just been essential to the whole direction of my life. I can't say why, but I can feel it. And the realization just this minute that I haven't been tithing off the money that's been coming in from Patreon. Of course I have to do it. I mean, it's coming in to serve the work that I'm trying to do for Master, but I also have to tithe to the source of the inspiration for that work. And it's essential that I do that, or else I'm taking what doesn't belong to me. And we're offering all the time, Lord, show me how I can serve. Well, here's a way. Consider it very seriously, because it will have marvelous effect on your life. There's countless stories, which Swami actually, most of this chapter about tithing in this book is wonderful stories about the prosperity that comes from doing it. Prosperity on financial levels, but much, much deeper in our heart with God. God bless you, my friends.